Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Joshino and today I'm going to be talking about our favourite stone lady. Yes, that's Inara in Paladins, and especially whether or not she rocks in OB50. Inara's been pretty much seen since she was released as a champion that wasn't really in the meta. She wasn't one of the champions that was highly picked, a lot of people thought she was weak, and just a little history lesson for you all on how Hi-Rez tried to address that. In OB46, they increased her ultimate damage, her health, and also the Earthen Guard cooldown, which is that damage reduction ability. In OB47, they gave her extra HP, and also buffed one of her healing cards, which also was on Earthen Guard. Then in OB48, they increased her effective damage range. So here we are at OB50. Now there's some big things in this patch that are adding up with all the accumulative buffs in the previous patches. Now first of all, let's just talk about the massive one, the big elephant in the room here. This is Mother's Grace. So whenever you use Earthen Guard, you get an extra 20% damage reduction. But now in OB50, you also get debuff immunity. Now what exactly debuff immunity is sort of changes from what they said on the live stream. They pretty much said that Cauterize and abilities that acted like Cauterize, so things like Cassie's Blast Shot, Sky's Poison Darts, things like that. But in OB50, in the public test server, pretty much anything that has an effect on you is blocked by this legendary card and the ability. So it blocks things like Cauterize, it will get rid of them. It also gets rid of things that do damage to you over time. So Tyra's Molotov Cocktail just stops doing damage to you altogether. It stops the Cauterize sort of effect as well. And other things as well, like Crowd Control, which are like stuns, slows, it completely gets rid of those too. So any sort of status effect that has an effect on Inara is pretty much nullified by using Earthen Guard. How does this actually work out in game? Well, it just means you can just say, fuck it, I'm gonna stay in this area. I don't care what's coming at me. If I get it slowed, I don't care. If I have a Tyra Molotov sitting below me, which would normally pretty much wreck me, I don't care. I'm just gonna click my right click and I'm pretty much immune to everything. Also, because of the previous patch, the healing is pretty big. And also, generally, this card gives you 50% damage reduction. That's a big deal as well. I'm not gonna lie, this ability is quite insane, and I'm not entirely sure whether they meant for pretty much everything to be removed or just wiped by this ability. Maybe for something similar in one of her legendary cards where it wipes pretty much any effects on her, but it's only at the start of when she uses the ability. With Inara, it's for the full duration of that Earthen Guard. And again, Earthen Guard lasts for 5 seconds and has a cooldown of 10 seconds base, but can be reduced to 8 seconds if you get the cards. I mean, it's a massive deal for Inara at the moment, and in every game I've played so far as Inara on the PTS, I've done insanely well, or the Inara I've been playing against has also done insanely well. High damage, generally not dying at all. Maybe they'll still lose because they're being a bit too aggressive, but at the end of the day, these Inaras are really performing. Like I said, I think it's one of the things that Hi-Rez is struggling a bit at the moment to communicate what exactly status effect, crowd control effects, debuffs exactly are, and sometimes the concepts of these things get a bit confusing on what ability affects what status, and maybe that just needs clearing up a bit in how they categorize things. So will this go live? I'm not entirely sure, but if it does, this ability alone could pretty much mean that Inara is one of the best pickups for tanks. It just is that great. It really is powerful in this patch. How could it be balanced a bit to maybe make it less ridiculous? I think perhaps it could be that the first second of the Earthen Guard gives you this debuff and gets rid of everything, or maybe the last second as well, so there's like a 3-second gap where things happen. But I don't know, like this, just in general, the concept of it, getting rid of pretty much every status effect is such a big deal. The thing is, just getting rid of Cauterize alone would have been a big deal, because on Inara that would mean that you can get the full amount of healing, and paired with a Ceres or a Meldamba that are constantly pocket docking you, you could be a pretty unstoppable force. A literal stone wall smashing into the enemies. And for once, Rejuvenate is actually useful on this champion, because once you use that ultimate, you'll be getting all the extra healing without any mitigation. So Rejuvenate could be the card pickup for Inara. It's cheap, it's going to be really effective on the Inara just because you're going to get rid of the Cauterize. So that's a plus, and means that this card has kind of not been picked up much. this patch could be picked up. Anyway, let's move on to the other changes, but this was the big one, so Mother's Grace being buffed by this is pretty insane, and why Inara is going to rock if this goes out like it is. The second up is the damage fall off. So basically they've made it so that the damage fall off is more dynamic and more gradual across the range. So before it was in sort of increments of like at X range you'd have X damage, then X range further there'd be damage, and the drop off would be pretty instant. What this feels like now is that at medium ranges, it's sort of like say a Drogos is flying above you but not too far away, you'll be able to do a lot more sustained damage and reliable damage. And I was finding in games that I was reliably taking down people that were running away, trying to keep the distance from me. Before I would have struggled to do that, and that's because of the damage drop off not being so harsh and not being so punishing at further ranges. And even and the end match stats sort of reflected this, as in one game I got over 100,000 damage as the Inara. It was pretty insane. Finally, another buff that is quite positive but still has some quirkiness that I feel makes Inara a bit frustrating is that impasse, Inara's wall, her big stone wall, range has been increased from 60 units to 80 units. It just means that you'll be able to put your wall up further away, you're able to block archways that are further away from you that before that you couldn't do, and it's more about blocking off areas and denying damage and things like that, and it's always good to be able to do that further away and predict where people are going to run to and stop them from going through there, or stopping somebody from firing through an archway or something like that. My problem with impasse is that it's so finicky to use. It's really hard to put down the wall reliably and quickly. I think quickly is the most important thing. With all the other shields in the game, if you hit the shield button, it pretty much just puts it down on the ground wherever, because it doesn't matter about the collision on the walls and stuff so much. But with impasse, it seems that you have to actually get the exact position, correct position, and also like line it up correctly as well to put it down. And sometimes when you try and put down the wall, the actual collision detection mechanic will stop you from putting it down quick enough to stop somebody running away, or putting it down to block something in time, especially if it's indoors or in some cover where there's walls or a doorway or an archway. Sometimes it can be really hard to put that down, and really annoying when it just doesn't go down even though you were like looking directly at it and trying to put it down. Either way, it is a buff, and put together with all these other buffs in this patch and all the buffs that have been accumulating up to this point, it's hard for me to say that Inara isn't going to be one of the big pickups this patch. Maybe it still won't be sussed out in the competitive scene, but I think in casual games, all of these buffs that have sort of incrementally just generally made her better means that she's just going to perform better now. And I think in the last patch she wasn't terrible, she was getting better and better. Has anyone else played her in the OB50 PTS? Be sure to let me know in the comment section what you think, and what do you think after seeing all of the footage I've shown you and talked about the abilities and walked you through. Do you think that she's gone too far in the buffs? Do you think this Mother's Grace is a bit broken, and perhaps maybe actually Harrows are going to look into it and change that up a bit? Or are you going to welcome Inara coming into the meta and being one of the big pickups this patch, just to shake things up, I guess? Be sure to let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more of my content, and I'll see you all next time. Joshino.